Hello everyone, I got a request to go over the features of the Asuka spaceplane, probably the most feature-rich spaceplane available for Kerbal Space Program as a coherent mod, and so that is what this video is. Now, it started out as the Scram Spike, and if you go to the link in the video description where the mod resides, it will be called Scram Spike. The Scram Spike was the single stage to orbit version of this spaceplane, but that took some liberties and was trying its best to make that work out, but it was pushing things to their limit. Here, this space plane, the version that is not a single stage to orbit space plane, but actually uses boosters and launches vertically first, will be a little bit more realistic. The stuff is all calculated out properly, and so that is why it exists. So the Scram Spike is the more optimistic one, capable of doing single stage orbit, taking off from a runway, landing on a runway, and then the Asuka spaceplane, as it is here, launches with boosters vertically and can do other things. Now, one of the additional features to this is that it has a cargo bay. The Scram Spike did not have a cargo bay. Now, originally, the cargo bay was a upper hatch cargo bay. It had doors on the top, but I decided instead to use a cargo ramp so that the Kerbals could roll out the cargo down here. And I figured that that would be more convenient than having two separate hatches, and also it would allow the Kerbals to get in and out of the vehicle. So we've got a cargo ramp. Feature 1. The landing gear is custom, but it's not configured like a normal landing gear for Kerbal Space Program. There are multiple variants. There's a single one that's just all three parts put together, and then there's the separated version, and right now this is the all three put together. I'm trying to make it into a standard landing gear, but I haven't had success with that. So that's a different thing. Now, I mentioned it as boosters. They are mounted on special... This isn't a special decoupler. There are special decouplers for the boosters, and so we could get them on those instead. I've removed it from there. But it is also possible to mount jet engines, and there's a variety of different kinds of jet engines, but the ones that fit these mounts are the Sabre-like jet engines. So, maybe I have to rotate it a little bit, like so. So if you wanted to use jet plus rocket engine, and these are aerospike engines, you can put other engines on the tail. Make sure you place them properly through the center of mass. But the aerospikes are what I use. And internally, this has methane, hydrogen, and oxygen, because these aerospikes have another special feature. They have a tripropellant mode. So they get more thrust using hydrogen, oxygen, and methane, and then more efficiency if you just used hydrogen and oxygen, so, but less thrust, obviously. So they lift off with the tripropellant and switch to the bipropellant along the way, with optional low efficiency, low thrust methalox version. And that's mainly if you get refueled by something that can only carry methane and oxygen. So you wouldn't normally want to have that. So another special feature. The boosters, by the way, start out as not having the nose cone or the skirt. Those are separate decoupling nose cones and skirts, so they have the separatrons in to help with it separating off. So you have to rotate them properly so that they push the boosters, well, not like that, push the boosters away from the spaceplane. It does have a spot for a docking port there. That spot should be about where the center of mass is often. But it does depend on what cargo you've loaded. And there is a camera here, but that's not included in the mod. That's just Ulcam VDS camera. I think everything else is included in the parts in the mod. Now, the wings, normally in space you don't want wings, right? They're just extra mass. However, the wings should have radiators. And at this point, I should probably show how this looks in Blender instead of in Kerbal Space Program. So actually the wings should have radiators. I just haven't done that part yet in Kerbal Space Program, and that does bring up the point that this is still a work in progress. So we do have radiators, and as far as having additional features, some things just aren't in Kerbal Space Program but are made for the manual instead. For instance, if we get rid of the body, we see that I have outlined exactly where the tanks are. That's the forward hydrogen tank, rear hydrogen tank, that's the methane tank, and underneath is where this blue thing is the oxygen tank. The oxygen tank is centered so that, maybe I can show that, there it is, so that as it drains it's not going to change the center of mass, right? So the center of mass is meant to be here where the docking port is. That's a custom docking port there, and then the tanks are laid out as you see it. The center of mass should be in front of the rear landing gear, just in front of the rear landing gear. And you can see where the cockpit is and the cargo bay here, and then there's actually a rear crew area that we will soon see. There's the forward RCS stuff and the rear RCS stuff. And there's all sorts of details that are written into the manual. By the way, there's a manual. Let's go back to Kerbal for a sec though. In the mod there will be a PDF that is the manual. The manual looks like this. It's fairly short right now. It doesn't even have the checklists, but it does have a lot of details on how this all works. Wings, forward area, etc. The layout. And let me just zoom out here. So, the various areas of the vehicle, how its habitability is, the electrical system, where stuff is, the 3 fuel cells, and there are reactors, by the way. It has reactors. They aren't configured as interstellar system heat reactors yet. I will do that eventually, but right now they are not, and I'll configure the radiators appropriately as well. Hydraulic system overview, how the avionics works, communications. Oh yes, communications. So that's another feature up here. If we right click, there are many animations built into this, but it does have its communication stuff in the nose like that. And so we can deploy them, and those are technically realistic. So it describes them in the manual. The propulsion system in detail, the boosters, though this isn't the Bola boosters that we have right now. These are the older versions. Possible rocket sled use, the main fuel tanks, and the reactor situation with the radiation shielding. Technically, the shaded area here is the area that is shielded by the radiation shielding for the reactors in the back. So while the reactors are active, people should not spend a long time standing outside of those cones. And then the whole mass budget in great detail, a laser weapon option, which does come with the mod, but it doesn't actually shoot a laser. But these are the details on it. Oh, and then the controls, because we do have a cockpit that's realistic, though I'm still working on it. Performance data, and then the propellant loadings. So 100% hydrolox is if it's done tri-propellant mode, depleted the hydrolox that's part of the tri-propellant mode, and then switched to just pure hydrolox, that's where it picks it up. So when it says 100%, why is there 170%? Because in its normal launch, it'll go through the tri-propellant mode first, and then go down through the hydrolox mode, depleting along the way. So that's why it's like that. So these are the various delta V budgets based on how much. So there's the fuel loading, and then there's the delta V budget based on how much fuel you have, which fuel load, and the various thrust to weight ratios for Earth and Mars and the Moon. So as much detail as you could ask for. Of course, these are all with a certain payload, a 6-ton payload, which is nominal. So it doesn't carry that much, right? it is a space plane. It is meant to carry crew to places, and lots of places. If we take a look here and open the landing doors, it has an array of landing engines. These are hydrogen and oxygen as well. And they are capable of landing you on the moon or Mars. And in subsequent videos, we will see that. The drill is stock, so you have to put that in. But otherwise, it's got the reactor to help you run the drill and the built-in ISRU system. So you can start the ISRU to convert the ore, just stock ore, into hydrolox. We've got ore containment here. And so you can refuel yourself using this system. Also, it's got the ability built in to cryocool your hydrogen. So you see that there's this hydrogen capacity here. That's for the boil-off hydrogen. As the hydrogen boils off, it will go from liquid hydrogen to gaseous hydrogen. In order to stop that from happening, if you will, and reclaim your hydrogen, you start the cryocooler, use power to cool the hydrogen back into liquid hydrogen. So that will take power, but effectively that means this is a zero boil-off system. The oxygen cooling is separate because it's not as necessary. They both take power. Okay, well, let me take off the boosters and such, and let's see it outside, because there are other features that are also relevant. Not everything works exactly the way I would like it to, but we'll take it as is. So this cannot lift off of Earth. It's only rated at most to lift off from Mars. And if you just use the engine, there's two parts to the body, by the way. There's the upper part, and then this ISRU conversion thing. And so there are versions without the engines or without the reactors, and that'll be lighter. But the engines, so the engines are like that, built into the part. And right now they have a thrust limit of 0. But for the engines, the ones that are configured as engines are this one, this one, this one, this one, this one, this one. The outer 4 on each side, or 2 here, and 2 on the other side, so a total of 8 engines, are configured as RCS thrusters to help keep balance. So they're not going to be used actively unless you press H if, you know, it's in the direction of motion like that. So keep that in mind. You're not using all 20 at the same time. Let's see the cockpit view. So the cockpit is raster prop monitor compatible, assuming you have a good version of raster prop monitor. The switches that we have are not actually clickable, but they exist. So that's the important part. So we've got everything looking proper. The Kerbals are on cushions because the seats are sized for humans. And I haven't done that panel or the panel on the opposite side yet, and then there are probably some details on the front panel that I should change. But otherwise, it looks like a cozy little cockpit. If I do say so myself. 4 seated in front here, and there's room in the forward crew area for them to do stuff and have cargo. And technically there's cargo room under the floor too. However, let's see what happens when we EVA. When we EVA a Kerbal, they EVA out inside the rear crew area where we currently have water, food, and oxygen. This isn't built in. I added those containers to simulate the food, water, and oxygen. And the Kerbal can walk over here. There's a hatch on top. Let me switch vessels. Here, if we go open hatch, that's where they would normally dock to something, and then they can transfer out like that. Close hatch. For fueling, it would dock back here. That's just to dock to something where crew can pass through. Back here is where you would dock for fueling, and so we don't have a docking port back there right now. So back to jump inside, you can climb up this ladder, and this is a fake door, so they just disappear inside. It's sort of a airlock into the cargo bay. Now, people have made a good point that instead of having this ramp, maybe I should just have a little elevator. The ramp is cute though. but it does take up extra room. So they can go down here, and if they have cargo, the cargo can be over there, and we can switch vessels again to the actual space plane, and this thing can open cargo ramp, and the Kerbal will flop a bit and then go down. Now, unfortunately, I don't understand it, but even though I've got the collider on this ramp correct in Unity, it doesn't look correct. It doesn't operate correctly here. And what happens is, right around here, oh, maybe it'll work. Oh, no, there. So that's wrong. Jeb isn't supposed to have that problem. I don't know why this part of the ramp is not functional. Can you... Okay, but Jeb can climb back on there. But I'll have to figure out how to fix that. Okay, and then we can close the ramp. Switch back to Jeb. And Jeb can get back in, right? So the SSTO version, the Scram Spike, does not have this cargo bay because it needs all the room it can get for its hydrogen. Otherwise, it can't be an SSTO. And hydrogen takes a lot of space. Overall, for people to travel in, the space plane is very roomy. It has as much room per person as the International Space Station, so it's fine for people traveling to the moon or to Mars. Mars trip is usually 6 to 9 months, which is about how long people have stayed on the International Space Station for, so it should be all right. Otherwise, they would probably want to deploy a base or be landing at a base in which to stay if they're staying for longer at any of those locations. But it can land vertically like this, and I've already made videos with that, and I'll continue to make it. The landing engines are not as efficient as the aerospikes. That's why we have the aerospikes, and of course they're not as powerful. The aerospikes, if this is fully fueled, the aerospikes are not capable of lifting this off the ground. It's too heavy for that. That's why it needs the boosters. But if it's not fully fueled, then that's a different situation. I think we've covered it. So we've got the comms up front, we've got all the other details, cryocooler, and there'll probably be more features as I add more details to it. Oh, I should mention that the plane's name is Asuka Spaceplane ASCA. I created an acronym. Originally it was Asuka like that name, but I decided to make a more business-friendly sort of version of the name. So instead of having it be a person's name, make it an acronym, ASCA. But anyway, it's pronounced the same, so it doesn't matter. So that's that. There you have it. As far as I'm concerned, if somebody has a different claim, maybe there is a more sophisticated spaceplane for Kerbal Space Program. I don't even know if there's a more sophisticated spaceplane or spacecraft for any game with this much detail and realism, but we'll set that aside. Maybe you guys have some suggestions for candidates. But with that, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please do press like. If you have any comments or suggestions, please leave them in the comment section below, and I'll see you next time.